late. Those two chilling words, delivered without the slightest trace of emotion by the wealthiest man alive, became nothing less than a final verdict, a death sentence for the woman who believed she had successfully outplayed the system. But how did Lauren Sanchez's story flip so dramatically, from celebrated billionaire bride to a fugitive entangled in a staggering $5 billion lawsuit? All within the span of just 30 short days. And more importantly, why was Jeff Bezos allegedly orchestrating her downfall long before the wedding vows were even exchanged? Before we unpack the shocking twists uncovered in this investigation, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. What began as the wedding of the century has now exploded into the scandal of the decade. Now that the dust has settled and legal documents have come to light, it's clear this was never the fairy tale romance it once appeared to be. While the world was captivated by Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's high-profile relationship, behind the scenes was a web of betrayal, family conflict, and leaked private messages that triggered one of the most public and expensive divorces in history. What's surfacing now in court records and insider reports is that Jeff may have discovered something deeply unsettling about Lauren's inner circle, particularly her brother Michael Sanchez, who allegedly sold their private messages to a tabloid for just $200,000. Though Jeff Bezos never publicly accused Lauren of being complicit, the situation ignited a chain of events that led to a $38 billion divorce settlement, an FBI investigation, and major reputational fallout. While rumors of a revenge plan remain unverified and sensationalized, what's undeniable is that this scandal reshaped not only Bezos' personal life, but also the way billionaires handle privacy, trust, and betrayal in the digital age.
What if I told you that at the peak of a $5 billion divorce storm, Lauren Sanchez, usually poised, calculated, and in control, cracked under the pressure and made a last-ditch emotional attempt to stop it all? According to sources close to the situation, as her carefully constructed world began collapsing around her, she panicked. Desperately, she called Jeff Bezos, texted him, and even attempted to show up at his office unannounced. For the first time, Lauren wasn't the one steering the narrative. She was reacting, scrambling to undo what couldn't be undone. And when she finally got through to him, hoping for a chance, some empathy, or even just a conversation, Bezos didn't flinch. No warmth, no hesitation, just two cold words that ended it all. Too late. No, his answer wasn't emotional. It was surgical. Just two words. Too late. Final, cold. Delivered with the same clinical precision Jeff Bezos uses to restructure billion-dollar companies. It wasn't spoken in anger or grief, but with a calculated detachment that made the impact even more devastating. Those words didn't just end a relationship. They shattered Lauren's vision of a future in the highest circles of power. Her dreams of influence, legacy, and permanent status in Bezos' elite orbit were erased in a single moment. And the irony? This all unfolded just as their wedding transformed into a spectacle that felt more like a luxury brand launch than a celebration of love, making the fallout that followed feel like the ultimate act of strategic revenge. Every detail of their Venice wedding, the $500 million yacht, the designer gowns, the celebrity guest list, was orchestrated like a royal production, optimized for Instagram and legacy media alike. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a statement. Jeff and Lauren, untouchable, unstoppable, the power couple of the decade. But beneath the flawless visuals and media narrative, something darker was brewing. And now, barely weeks later, Bezos is reportedly ending it all with brutal efficiency. The irony? It's not poverty, conflict, or irreconcilable differences that cracked the foundation. It's too much money, too much leverage, too many hidden agendas, too much power to weaponize wealth. While the world watched a fairy tale unfold, Bezos may have seen something else entirely. A well-orchestrated performance, not a partnership. And when the richest man alive decides to walk away, he doesn't throw a tantrum. He pulls the plug and turns off the whole machine. The media once portrayed them as a dynamic power couple, destined to reshape the world. Two high-achieving individuals merging their vast empires into one unstoppable force. But according to insiders, the cracks were visible from the very beginning. If only people had known where to look. Jeff isn't someone who acts on impulse, reveals a former Amazon executive who worked closely with Bezos over the years. If he moves quickly on something personal, it's because he's been calculating every step in advance. He strategizes his breakfast like it's a chess game. Now, elite lawyers are circling, sensing opportunity in what could be the most lucrative legal battle of the decade. Assets are being frozen at lightning speed, and some reports claim Lauren may be scrambling to stay ahead of a looming legal firestorm that could obliterate everything in its path. She's now fading from the very spotlight she once fought tooth and nail to step into. Once a woman who spent years carefully crafting her public image and thriving on attention, she has suddenly withdrawn from the public eye, almost vanishing overnight. According to those close to the situation, this lawsuit goes far beyond the usual messy end to a high-profile relationship. It's not just legal separation, it's a cold, calculated move designed to erase her from the narrative entirely. This isn't a divorce, says one legal expert familiar with the sealed court filings. It's a digital execution. Bezos isn't merely targeting her finances, he's dismantling her future. The precision and scale of the strategy have left many wondering, how long has Bezos been quietly planning this behind the scenes?
Was their entire relationship just an elaborate game of cat and mouse, with Lauren unknowingly cast as the prey from the very beginning? That's the unsettling question now surfacing as observers begin to grasp the calculated precision of what's unfolding. What truly has people buzzing is the almost surgical dismantling of her independence. Every asset that could offer Lauren a financial or professional foothold has either been frozen, blocked, or dragged into complex legal battles. Her business ventures, carefully built during their marriage, are all being re-examined under a legal microscope. Even her personal social media is under surveillance by Jeff's legal team, combing for any breach of confidentiality or contractual misstep. It's like witnessing someone's identity being wiped out in real time, says a close source. Doors that once opened effortlessly for her as Mrs. Bezos are now slamming shut with brutal finality. It's a damn sad society, remarks one of Bezos's former friends, a person who once shared dinners, vacations, and family memories with Jeff, Lauren, and her now ex-husband. And then, almost out of nowhere, it was revealed that while Lauren was smiling warmly in one man's face, she was quietly betraying another behind his back. This wasn't just a case of infidelity, it was a deep, cutting betrayal of personal trust. That revelation added a far more painful and human layer to the entire situation. This wasn't some random affair between strangers. It marked the collapse of long-standing friendships, relationships where all parties had once shared their most personal stories, vulnerabilities, and life milestones. I don't condone that kind of behavior, but I can't feel sorry for Lauren either. When you choose to play with fire at that level, you better be ready to burn. The betrayal stings even more because it wasn't simply about love or wealth. It was about the fragile fabric of loyalty and the unspoken codes within an elite social circle. At the billionaire level, betrayal has consequences that go far beyond personal pain. It threatens the stability of entire business ecosystems built on mutual trust and discretion. Those close to all three individuals describe a tangled web of social contracts, favors, and expectations, many of which Lauren is now accused of shattering.
These weren't just ordinary friendships, says one insider.
These were powerful alliances, relationships that influenced billions of dollars in business ventures, shaped major philanthropic initiatives, and extended deep into political networks. When trust breaks at that level, the ripple effects aren't limited to personal lives. They can destabilize entire systems. This wasn't some emotional outburst or impulsive act of betrayal. Quite the opposite. Sources describe it as a meticulously planned takedown, executed with the precision of a military campaign. And when Lauren finally grasped the full magnitude of the storm heading her way, when she tried calling, texting, pleading for another chance, Jeff offered no explanations, no softness. He simply responded with two devastating words: too late. Those words, delivered without emotion, echoed with the same cold efficiency that built his global business empire. It was a final, chilling reminder of just how calculated and unforgiving power can be when loyalty is broken. There was no space for emotion, negotiation, or reconciliation. The decision had been made, and, as is typical with Bezos, once a move is set in motion, there's no going back. But what truly reveals the depth of his strategic mind is what happened before the fallout. According to insiders, Jeff didn't act immediately when things started to go wrong. Instead, he let Lauren unknowingly make several moves that violated the terms of their prenuptial agreement. Like a seasoned chess grandmaster, he allowed his opponent to step into traps, each mistake only strengthening his future legal position. Jeff could have ended this months ago, says a legal source close to the case. But instead, he waited patiently, gathering evidence, documenting every detail, and building a case so solid there was no way out. By the time he struck, Lauren was left with no legal shield. I want you to fully absorb the gravity of this moment. The empire they once paraded in front of the world, the glamorous facade of love, power, and wealth, is now visibly collapsing, piece by piece, under the scrutiny of millions. What's beginning to emerge from behind closed doors through carefully timed press leaks and recently unsealed court documents is far messier, more volatile, and far more shocking than anyone on the outside could have possibly predicted. The question now haunting observers is, how did things spiral so far out of control? How did a relationship that once appeared flawless, a picture-perfect union of power and passion, devolve into a mutual nightmare for both parties involved? And perhaps most chilling of all, is it possible that Jeff Bezos had orchestrated every move from the start, long before Lauren even realized she was part of a much larger, high-stakes game? The clues are only just beginning to surface, and together, they form a story that's equal parts riveting and deeply unsettling. What's truly staggering is the sheer level of detail in Bezos' preparation. We're talking layers of contingency plans, countermeasures for hypothetical scenarios, some of which never even happened. He said, "It's like he was playing four-dimensional chess while she thought it was just a relationship." The guy has backup plans for his backup plans. Did you really think he wouldn't have one for his marriage? Long before the wedding guests ever stepped onto the romantic cobblestone streets of Venice, before the custom Valentino gown rumored to cost $250,000 made its dramatic debut, before the $3,000 per plate dinner was served beneath glittering chandeliers, and before the world's paparazzi flooded in to capture every luxurious moment, Jeff Bezos had already begun drawing the quiet battle lines for a war yet to come. At the very center of all this grandeur and public theater lay a far more calculated element, the prenup. But this wasn't just any agreement about who gets what. It was a meticulously crafted legal weapon, built for maximum protection and precision. This prenup wasn't just about dividing assets, it was about securing power. Imagine a legal contract designed by Bezos and enforced by a battalion of the nation's top legal minds. The wedding itself was even delayed, insiders say, specifically to ensure that every clause in the prenup was airtight. Behind the glamour and spectacle, the foundation for a high-stakes legal showdown had already been set, and Jeff had made sure he'd be the one holding the winning hand. Even the couple's closest friends had no idea what was truly contained within that document. The assumption, especially since they lived in Florida, was that their prenup would simply follow the state's standard protocols, with a basic clause that tied their divorce jurisdiction to Florida. Everyone was sure that the document would reflect that. But in reality, that was just the surface of what Bezos had orchestrated. Reports now reveal that the prenup included provisions so detailed and unusual, they seemed almost unimaginable. There were behavioral restrictions, guidelines for Lauren's social media activity, and even highly specific rules about how she could interact with business contacts she met through Jeff. It wasn't just a marriage agreement, it resembled an executive-level employment contract. "I've seen corporate acquisition agreements with fewer limitations," admits one lawyer who's handled high-net-worth cases. This wasn't a prenup, it was a corporate-level strategy. This prenup wasn't just a standard legal agreement designed to protect assets. It was a meticulously crafted blueprint to control every aspect of Lauren's life that could even remotely impact Jeff Bezos' vast business empire. This was a multi-clause, legally bulletproof masterpiece, engineered with the kind of precision that only someone like Bezos could mastermind. A man who plans rocket launches into space with the same level of detail and foresight that most people put into planning a vacation. According to insiders who were privy to parts of the document long before the wedding preparations even kicked off, Bezos had already gathered a team of the most formidable and influential attorneys in the country. These were not just lawyers, they were specialists in constructing ironclad agreements that could withstand any challenge, no matter how complex. They crafted a document so airtight, so flawlessly designed, that it could serve as an impenetrable fortress, not just protecting Bezos' assets, but safeguarding his entire empire from any potential attack. But the real brilliance of this document wasn't just in how it shielded his wealth. What set it apart was its ability to anticipate every future scenario, every potential conflict, and every move Lauren might make, even before she could take a single step. It was like a game of chess, where Bezos had already mapped out every possible countermove, 20 steps ahead of anyone else. The prenup reportedly included what legal experts are now referring to as behavioral triggers, specific actions that, if taken by Lauren, would automatically void her right to certain benefits. It was an almost preemptive strike, locking down her rights in ways no one could have predicted. Using the marriage as a tool for personal branding, making public appearances without prior approval, or even posting certain types of content on social media, all of these could trigger severe penalties, according to the details of the prenup. It's not just about money, explains a legal expert. It's about total control over the narrative, the image, and even personal relationships. The document essentially grants Bezos the authority to erase someone from his circle, from his world. This wasn't merely a financial agreement, it was a means of controlling every aspect of someone's life. What's truly shocking, however, is that Lauren allegedly signed this incredibly one-sided, detailed prenup just weeks before the wedding, under intense pressure. The stage was already set, guests had purchased tickets, the media frenzy was building, and the world was poised for what was billed as the wedding of the century. Imagine the situation, says a lawyer familiar with high-profile cases. Invitations had already been sent to global elites, your photo was on magazine covers, and you're told to sign this 200-page document, or the wedding is off. No time for negotiation, no chance for independent legal counsel, just an ultimatum. Sign or lose everything.
She made a choice that would become her undoing. Sources claim that Lauren was not only facing intense media pressure, but also business commitments tied directly to the marriage, leaving her with little room to escape.
According to insiders, Bezos' team strategically timed the signing of the prenup just before a major media event, ensuring that Lauren was in a heightened state of stress and unable to think clearly. Fast forward to today, and that very document, which was meant to safeguard their promising future, has become the tool Bezos now wields to sever Lauren from every potential asset, resource, and even the ability to publicly defend herself. What once seemed like a safeguard has turned into a complete blockade. Shares in companies, real estate holdings, and even her right to alimony have suddenly slipped beyond her reach, all thanks to clauses she signed without fully understanding their implications. But perhaps the most merciless part of this entire situation is the now infamous clause, which has gone viral in legal circles, dubbed the publicity trap. This clause specifically regulates media activity, tightly controlling Lauren's public image and essentially locking her out of any meaningful public discourse. The prenup clearly stipulates that if Lauren attempts to use the marriage, her status as Bezos' wife, or any related opportunities for personal brand deals, media appearances, advertising contracts, or any form of public exposure without written permission, her rights to any financial entitlements could be completely voided. It's a clause that has earned the prenup the nickname the $5 billion boomerang, a weapon that Lauren herself effectively helped create by signing the document, but one that has now swung back with a devastating force, threatening to destroy her completely. The boomerang effect is especially ruthless because every step Lauren took to build her public profile during their marriage is now being turned against her. Social media posts, magazine interviews, business meetings, every action she took to further her own visibility and career is being weaponized by Bezos' legal team, used as evidence to prove she violated the prenup. What was once seen as personal ambition is now being framed as a breach of contract.
Every Instagram post, every photo op, every business meeting that Lauren participated in is now being used as damning evidence of a contract violation. The ink on their marriage certificate hadn't even dried before Jeff Bezos set the next phase of his plan in motion. Just days after their grand, over-the-top Venetian wedding, a celebration so lavish that even the chandeliers reportedly came with non-disclosure agreements, Bezos dropped a legal bombshell that left the world stunned. "When I received that wedding invitation," recalls one guest, "I knew this was no ordinary event. It had an air of something special, but none of us could have predicted it was a trap laid out in full view of the world." The invitations themselves were nothing short of masterpieces, gold-edged, bearing the couple's personal coat of arms, printed on paper so luxurious that it cost more than most people's monthly salaries. A celebration of love, or a calculated maneuver camouflaged as one? Now, it's becoming painfully clear that every detail of this opulent spectacle had a dual purpose. The wedding was far from just a celebration of love. It was a meticulously staged event designed for one very specific reason: to serve as evidence in a future legal battle. Every photo, every conversation, every interaction was being captured not just for memories, but for the cold, calculated documentation of events. Bezos essentially transformed his own wedding into a corporate intelligence operation. The man had photographers on the ground, documenting moments that had nothing to do with romance or joy, reveals a source who worked on the event. They were meticulously cataloging interactions, recording private conversations, and building what could only be described as a legal case file, all well disguised as wedding photography. Even the guest list wasn't just a social choice, it was strategic, carefully curated to serve a larger, unseen agenda.
Every individual invited to the wedding was more than just a guest. They were potential witnesses to Lauren's actions, her words, and her plans. What was initially presented as a grand social celebration was in fact a highly orchestrated operation designed to gather evidence. According to legal experts who have reviewed the available documents, this situation goes far beyond the scope of a typical wealthy person's divorce. What we're witnessing is a calculated and ruthless reputational dismantling, executed with the precision of a surgical strike. Bezos isn't merely asking for the return of gifts or a fair division of property. He's systematically and mercilessly cutting her off from anything that could provide her with financial autonomy or public influence moving forward. And perhaps the most shocking detail of all is how Lauren came to discover the full extent of this legal nightmare. Lauren didn't learn of this legal nightmare through a phone call from her husband or even a formal notice from a lawyer. No, she discovered it in the most jarring way possible, through a courier who appeared while she was calmly shopping in the upscale Malibu area, convinced her life was moving along as planned. Imagine the shock of that moment. You're casually choosing a designer handbag, planning your next Instagram photo shoot, and suddenly a stranger hands you a folder containing court documents that unravel your entire world in an instant. What's truly terrifying about this situation is the cold, calculated precision behind it. It wasn't a single lawsuit. It was a well-coordinated, multi-pronged legal assault, engineered to overwhelm her at every turn. Multiple court filings in different jurisdictions, asset freezes, cease and desist orders issued to her business partners. It was legal warfare, conducted with the kind of military precision only Bezos and his team could execute. They hit her from every possible angle, all at once, observes a legal expert, highlighting just how overwhelming and methodical the attack truly was.
By the time Lauren fully grasped what was unfolding, it was already too late. When she, in a daze, attempted to reach Jeff after the legal devastation hit, she was met with nothing but silence. Calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages were left unanswered. Even her efforts to visit the Amazon or Blue Origin offices were met with cold resistance as security refused her entry. It was as if her entire sense of power and influence had evaporated in an instant, says a source close to the situation. Business contacts severed ties. Social invitations ceased. Friends became unreachable. Within a matter of hours, she was erased from the elite circles she once effortlessly navigated. A Hollywood insider put it bluntly. One day, she's royalty among billionaires, and the next, she's a complete nobody. That exile wasn't a coincidence. It was a calculated move. The words "too late" weren't just a simple rejection. They were the final stamp of approval on Bezos's meticulously planned operation to dismantle her life. By the time she realized she'd been trapped, every exit had been sealed, every asset locked down, and every legal avenue blocked. Those two words, "too late," were not only the end of her marriage, but also the end of a game she hadn't even known she was playing.